Yes, yes, that was Inside Out by Anthrax. I know those heavy metals are you out there. Y'all were rocking with Anthrax. They always deliver in terms of whoo whoo whoo. But again, I couldn't rock with them like I usually do because I'm still struggling with soldier issue. So I just rock inside. And if you were looking at me, you'll see that inside I was just bending my neck and head. Anyway, good morning. Happy Thursday. It's Monica, your friend Monica. I'm glad that I'm able to get up and do this again. I just love doing these videos because I like communicating with my favorites out there in the world who listen to me and the things I like to talk about. Like, for example, yesterday, I did something in the middle of the day. Now, in the middle of the day, I'm with my husband in the basement, and my husband loves me very much, and he does not mind me doing what I'm doing, but he really doesn't want me to sit there ranting on the video, so he always asks me to do it away from him. So in the summertime, I can go in the backyard, do it over there, or in the wintertime, I'm just here in the living room, in this living room, and that's where I record my videos. But yesterday, there was a piece that was published then it was shared on Twitter because I don't read Arabic. It was shared by Ali Abu Nima of the Electronica Intifada.net on Twitter that Dr. Joseph Masai, who is a professor of Middle Eastern and African Studies at Columbia University in New York, published a piece. Typically, he publishes many pieces in Electronica and Intifada, but also in the Middle East Eye. But yesterday, he published one in the Arabic language, right? And it was in the Arabia, I think, channel 21. And Dr. Masai, in fact, he has been good for me because over the years, I get to read his columns and I get to know about him. And he just a correct leftist like me, all right? And that's why white colonizers, white supremacists, white settlers in U.S. hate his ass, right? Who is who in whiteness, who want to rule the world and wipe off the non-whites of us on this planet. They hate him with passion. But Dr. Masai published that piece, and in the middle of the day yesterday, I decided I'm going to read it out loud because I know if I share the piece, nobody is going to click on it and read it. So I decided maybe, just maybe, if I read it to the video, publish it on my Facebook, and publish it on my YouTube channel, somebody will do it. Thankfully for me, some people, about 19 of you over there on Facebook, read it. Well, you guys listen me read it to you. So I thank those 19 of you who did that. And then about 3 of you did it on YouTube, right? And the title of that piece was, "The U.S. State Department Declares War on All Non-White of the World," right? By Dr. Joseph Masai, right? Now, if you have not watched it, go watch it. That's the title of it on my YouTube channel, @ago_m. And that's important because, again, when white supremacists talk, like Marco Rubio, Donald Trump, people, they make a big fuss, but they actually not listening to what they're saying, right? And what happened is that we so indoctrinated, especially people of color, that when white folks are saying the most heinous of things, even though we see what we see in Palestine, even though we see what they actually do in real life, we act like they God. That somehow, that's what they're supposed to do. We have naturalized crimes against non-white folk as if that is divine calling, right? So that's what people go to church, because that's what white folks supposed to do. Wiped off non-white to take over, because hey, that's what God gives them that. But there's no God. There was no such thing as God. The bottom line is this: when you allow them to do it, they're gonna keep doing it. When you feel like you can't even stand up to them, you can't even speak up. Like me, it's true, I can't fight, but at least I can speak up, right? I can speak up, and do what you can do, right? When you don't say anything, you naturalize their barbarism. You naturalize their sociopathic, right? You naturalize their supremacy, their exceptional, all the shit they throw at you. But they're not any of that. They're just human like us, right? And we can, whenever they say anti-human shit, we need to confront them, right? So I read that. If you have not listened to that, go, because it's not me, Monica, they don't never going to school, don't know up from down, saying this is a scholar, a prestigious scholar who know how to hear, and he know history, and I mean that he know history for thousands of years. Okay, that's what Dr. Moncia does. He know everything that's need to be known about planet Earth, especially this region, the whole Africa, West Asia, Europe, you name it, he knows it, okay? And if you read his column, you know that's the thing. In fact, part of the reason I am extra skeptical about the U.S. public come from Dr. Moncia, because I learned some years ago, he literally told me this, and it's not like he told me this, he was just talking, Randy Khaled had an interview with him, and he was saying that people always pose this argument that American people, they go along with all this barbarism because they just don't know better, right? That's the thing. Is American people are good, the government is bad. Well, that's not true. Dr. Moncia say, and I agree with him, because I have observed, because I know who American people is. And I mean, I know American people of every fashion. I have seen them. I work with the poorest. I'm with the middle class. I know all of them, okay? There's nothing about American life that I don't know, because, honey, I live in this bitch and I have pay attention to everybody. But nevertheless, what Dr. Moncia is this. American people are not, they don't give a fuck. As long as they can live in the three-car garage, like I've been saying, and they can have their portfolio, they can care less if you was wiped out the rest of the planet, right? That's how sociopathic they are. The notion that you think that these people care is a fallacy, is a propaganda trope, right? Is no such thing. And if you don't, and as I have proved to you with this family drama, and I have told you in the minor character, literally tells me, forget about society, worry about your own family. That's who American people is. They're sociopaths. They profit at the misery of other people. That's who they are, all right? And if we don't talk about it, we don't expose them, they're going to keep doing that shit. The only time they're going to learn that they're just human like the rest of us is when we say, bitch, you don't entitled to shit. I'm not entitled to die for you to have your fucking car garage, okay? That's what. And Dr. Moncia, if you read his writings, if you will really get to understand the inside of this colonial shit we dealing with, right? And if you want to know about Palestine or anything like that, here's a good one. So make sure you watch the video. I published it yesterday. I also published another video that I read, a very good, the last section of Dr. Parenti, Black Shirts and Reds, the rational fascism and the overthrow of communism. And it was about the environment, how the apocalypse, how they destroy white colonizers, capitalist owners are destroying the whole planet, right? These are sociopaths, is not even a good word. I have no word for these people. They're so far gone, right? They are literally destroying the place where they themselves inhabit, a creature based on this earth. They are destroying everything, and they rationalize all of that. In fact, if you listen to Marco Rubio, the same speech I've been ranting about, he says about that. If you care about the environment, you care about planet, you care about animals, it's a cult. Because if you're a correct good person, you're supposed to be a Christian racist, right, who want to destroy the earth, right? That's the correct person. But if you're like, hey, no, let's not kill Palestinians, let's not kill Africans, let's not kill Asian, let's not destroy the earth, let's not destroy animals, let's protect the earth, you're not a good person. You are a cult member. That's what this bit said. That's Marco Rubio. And then speaking of Marco Rubio, and this is will bring us to what's happening in the world, what's happening on planet Earth. So it turns out that it's a couple things about Marco Rubio. I mean, this guy is becoming like a star. He is giving me my mother-in-law, Principal Character Jean vibes all over. Okay, this Marco Rubio thing, this bitch. First of all, for years we know that he was come from Cuba. His bitch-ass family was slaveholders, and Fidel Castro asked them to get the fuck out. Out! No more slave here. You can just leave your plantation, bitch. Leave. And they went to Florida, and because this is a racist settler, right? Settler colony, they said, hey, let's give them the power. That's who this animal is. But Marco Rubio, as we can see, when he went to Munich's security conference, bitch said he didn't say nothing that he ever came to Cuba. He said that he is Italian America, okay? And we know Italian America, the one who conquered this place with the Christopher Columbus, terminated native, took over the land, right? So these are racist settlers. So he identified with racist settlers. He said he's Italian America. He also said he's a Spanish, but he underplayed the Spanish part. You know, even in Spain is also white, but it was not white enough for Marco Rubio. He want to really play this Italian American because, hey, Italian American, Columbus, settlers, raping babies, taking over, it sounds better. Okay, so that's who this Marco Rubio is. Now, yesterday he did a couple of things that I think is funny. I personally was laughing my ass off. He had, I don't know even where, because I don't give a fuck. This bitch was somewhere, and they interviewed him that he was complaining that Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, is posing U.S. threat. It's posing a threat to U.S. because Iran has a certain missiles, right? Have a lot of certain short range missiles, all right? And that poses a threat to U.S. Now, if you look at geography, if you look at the map, U.S. is so far away from Iran, right? So far away. How did the short-range missile pose a threat to U.S. is beyond me. But to make it even funnier, he was just like, he said that, and what was that? What did he say? Oh yeah, and then also posed a threat to his partners. His partners, right? Now, if you imagine saying something like that, I mean, maybe for average American, because they don't use the human brain, that sounds like he says something important here. And think about how supremacist you have to be to think like that, okay? First of all, this Iran, it has been in the same borders for like thousands of years, right? 10,000 years. They have not really moved. They can't really move. If you are geography like that, Iran, been there the same time, the whole time, right? U.S. is a settler colony. This bitch-ass Marco Rubio is a settler here. He don't belong here. He belong in Italy, right? All right. So he's saying that Iran, because Iran is where he is, it's a geography you can move, is posing a threat to him because what Iran's supposed to be is just be like his so-called partners with what I call slaves. These are colonies of U.S., right? These are colonies because Those colonies are not posing a threat on U.S. because what happened? U.S. is surrounded Iran with military bases, right? U.S. soldiers, and Iran know what to do if U.S. would dare attack them, right? And for this white supremacist, Marco Rubio, this degenerate who think on planet Earth, it just seemed like something out of another planet, right? And that's what we're dealing with. That's who wrote the Republican Party. That's what, in fact, in the words of Henry, that's what U.S. supposed to do. U.S. supposed to be out there in the Middle West Asia threatening Iran, because that gives Henry the 3 cargo rights that he shared with his common-in-law wife called Jean, right? My mother-in-law, the principal character, right? That's what they're supposed. So you had to connect these things, how that work. You are so supremacist. You the one who went over there, harassed them. You don't belong there. And now you're going to cry. You literally, the whole planet listening to you. Man, he is the Secretary of State of U.S. He represents U.S. for the whole planet. So when he's speaking, it's not so much the people inside this country listening. It's that the rest of the planet are listening. And they're sitting there and listening. Are you fucking kidding me? You the one who is Iran Bayat harassing them. And you gonna call us that they pose a threat to you because you over there, your fucking military bases? What the fuck are you talking about? So that's an example how this Marco Rubio. And you know what? If you listen to conservative followers of conservative people, they are so proud of Marco Rubio. They said this is the best Secretary of State they ever had and forever, because he is taking white supremacy, white arrogance, white exceptional to the whole nother level. In fact, we had to abandon logical thinking, abandon our understanding what words means, to, for us to even say, what the fuck were you even talking about? So that's Marco Rubio for you. So that's the funniest thing. I think it's hilarious. I think it's hilarious. And I was listening to Dr. Horn yesterday. Dr. Horn, too, was listening to Marco Rubio Phoenix. Dr. Gerald Horn, you should be reading him. You should be reading correct historians. He thought that was so hilarious what Marco Rubio is proposing for the planet. He's saying that we, the white folk, the Italian America, we are here and we're going to recolonize the whole Africa, okay? That's what he's saying. And Africans are just sitting back and waiting for you, these Italian Americans, like Marco Rubio, to colonize them back. But anyway, that's that. And another thing he did is so funny yesterday. Okay, so I don't know what happened. Something in Miami or in Florida or somewhere, some Cuban Americans, some Cuban nationals that went to that white colonizer have in Miami and Florida to train to be terrorists in Cuba. They took a boat, right? They have weapon and all kinds of criminal, all kinds of violence tools in the thing. And they was on their way to Cuba to conquest Cuba, whatever. And then what happened is, like I said, if you have watched some of my episodes, I already tell you the badass or the badass in terms of military is Cuba. Okay, this is badass. I mean, think about it. What kind of small country? Now, Cuba is super tiny. That can humiliate a huge country like United States and everything associated with it. That's Cuba. Okay? That's not a small feat. That is Cuba. Why you think they are oppressing Haiti? Because Haiti did something unbelievable that would have crumbled white supremacy as we know it today. And that's overthrow the Napoleon French Empire, right? And that's why U.S. said, oh, hell no. Because whereas, yes, it's a lot of black folk in Cuba, but not like Haiti. Haiti almost 100% white, black. And they just can't have it, right? Because that just sent a bad message. Because according to white folks, we need to understand that black people are not human. There's something akin to animal world, right? So they have to extra cross Haiti. But anyways, that's besides the point. So nevertheless, so these thugs, these criminals, got in a boat and went to Cuba. And when the Cuba Coast Guard, and then they started shooting at Cuba Coast Guard because they were encroaching in Cuba territory. And Cuba, of course, took care of business like they should. So a lot of these individuals that came, these thugs that came from Miami, wind up in the body bag, and now white supremacists are crying like a little bitch because Cuba did what they're supposed to do, right? I mean, nobody told them to go into Cuba over there without permission, without letting Cuba know, hey, Fidel Castro, I'm in my way. You know, make sure you have some welcoming red carpet for me. They didn't do that. They just show up with weapons, start shooting, and one captain got shot, right? So Cuba did what they're supposed to. As, again, I'm always have faith in Cuba, okay? They know how to do these things. They just don't bitch. You know, as you can see, when they went and kidnapped Nicolas Maduro and invaded Venezuela, Cubans, 32 of them, they did what they had to do, and they pay a price for it. Cuba just don't play. Cuba just out here, they mean business. They are anti-colonial. They are revolutionary. They're not trying to hear the fuck white supremacy had to say. Cuba said, we want freedom, and that's it. We don't want what white folks think the freedom mean. We want the real thing, okay? That's what Cuba is telling the whole planet, right? And that's why they hate them. Because Cuba means business. Other people pretend they want freedom, but what they really want is for the white man to favor them over others, right? That's what a lot of Caribbean countries are about. It's not really like Jamaica, for example. If you listen to Dr. Jamina Pierre, who is an expert in Haiti, and I think she's a Haitian, she will tell you the number one haters of Haiti is Jamaica, is black countries. Why? Because Haiti is just like Cuba. They're not trying to hear the shit. They want the real thing and the real thing only, right? And they don't like that. They like Uncle Tom's. They like where they get to be like the middle class black folk at the expense of the unwise masses, right? And they just don't want real revolutionary. But anyway, go back to this little scenario. Now white supremacists trying to cry about it, saying that these thugs were civilian and Cuba went and killed civilian. I'm like, okay, who take a little boat? A civilian, right? If you are a civilian, why would you take a little boat and you have weapons in your shit? Like, first of all, I'm a type of person like this. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me. When it comes to people of color, they love to fight about petty shit, right? They do. For example, there's a little fight on Twitter right now about black folk in the continent and black folk in U.S. and they are fighting over stuff. I'm not going to sit here, argue with a black folk here or a black folk in Africa over petty shit. Because the way I see it, they both are colonized, right? So, that, and I'm like, the way I see it, none of the people on Twitter who talk about black folk here or black folk in Africa own black folk, right? They're just talking about themselves. They're not talking about black people as a human being, as a distinct group, right? That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about their own arrangement, how to arrange this, their own immiseration, right? So they prefer to have less immiseration than others, right? And I'm not interested on that because frankly, I don't think any human being, irrespective of who the phenotype is, to be immiserated. I think all human beings, irrespective of how we look, are all the same. I'm not any more interested in Afghan people than I am of black people. I want freedom for all of us. That is what I meant. Injustice is injustice. The way I see it, we are occupied by colonial forces. And these colonial forces are not stopping. They're going to accelerate. Look at what they're doing with Palestine. I was listening to um to Venezuelan thinkers, right? And that's what I do. I just get out of the U.S. ecosystem and I just go through thinkers as well in the global south and how they think, right? And I'm trying to get what they're saying. And those thinkers are saying what I've been thinking. They call it Palestinization. They are making every colonized people, they are reduced us to Palestinian as a Palestine. What they did in Palestine is not just for Palestine. It's a model. It's the new baselines of human suffering. That's it. And they want that for all of us. That's what the Republican Party leaders are into with the Democratic Party. If you listen to the response to the State of the Union by Democrats, they are saying nothing different than Republican. In fact, they look like they doubled down, right? So when it comes to white colonizers, when it comes to white leaders, white thinkers, European settlers, colonizers, they're not just unified. They unify on this. Look, Donald Trump was threatening on colonizer Greenland. It resolved really within 5 seconds. It has not been, they have not got that kind of consensus on Palestine, that kind of consensus anywhere else, right? So if I'm not going to waste my time with the argument of black people fighting about who's going to get a better sandwich from their master, I don't care. I really don't care. There's a way I see this. Black people in U.S. was stolen from Africa. That's what it is. Black people in this whole hemisphere, they were stolen. They were stolen from somewhere else. Right? This land that we over here, it was stolen. This is a stolen land. White folk in these Americas, Australia and as well, they're colonizers. They're settlers. They're the one who came here. It's not their place. They stole this place. They stole other people to fix it up for them. Right? That's how I view them. Okay? I don't view them like, I don't care. I'm not trying to make life comfortable. Like, how sociopathic can you be? You thinking that your life need to be so much better while they exterminated Palestinian children. Like, how is that possible? Like, if you honestly think a world that can kill, exterminate human baby, it doesn't get any more innocent than a human child, okay? If they're doing that to them, you think that you are chosen? No, you're not. You're not chosen. In a world where it's permissible, like we hear right now, is stealing Palestinian children, stealing children from conflict areas and putting them in this pedophilia gangsters by these colonial states. That's not a system I want even gonna fight at the margin. We need to go to the core of this. Right? What we need is a unified human ethos that confront this evil we're dealing with this imperialism and capitalism. This is a capitalist system is what produces all these problems. I'm not saying that people are not going to fight. People are always going to fight. I mean, my husband and I, we fight like 3 times a day over petty shit. That's just life. But I'm talking about a profound things here. The bottom line, the genocides are not normalized again. Slavery is not normalized. U.S. overthrew the state of Libya, and now selling human beings is just a normal thing in that country, right? And if you pay attention to what happened, the same thing in Syria, by the way, right? They're stealing Syrian women, putting them through prostitution and stuff, right? So we are living in a world that is so vile, right? I can't be fighting over stuff like that. I'm a black person and I live in U.S. Black folk here, like fighting with Africans and calling each other name means it's not doing shit for me, right? Black folk, especially black people in Africa, the lot of them who come here are already middle class, so it's a class thing, right? So they middle class Africans who can get out of there. They don't count because black folk, we occupy a social class here. And back in Africa, those motherfuckers are the minority there. The majority people are poor. So I'm not interested on the middle class black folk per se. I'm interested on literally the downtrend. And I want their life to get better on this earth. Alright. So to just wrap this up, all I'm trying to say is this. We have to pay attention to what our white colonizers are saying, like Marco Rubio, like U.S. State, right? And confront the system, right? Like yesterday, not yesterday, the day before yesterday, they arrested an activist, a communist activist in Kenya. This gentleman, his name is, let me see, what's his name? I forgot. Yeah, his name is Buki Omole. Alright. And why he got arrested? He posed no threat. He was just out here organizing Kenyan people into communism, because if you go to Kenya, it has a shitload of poverty. They have slum. They have the biggest slum. You know, people think of slum, they think about the favelas in Brazil. They don't think about Kenya, but Kenya has the biggest slum. Now that's very strange thing for Africa, because this slum is not an African thing. It's white colonizers who did this to them, right? Because Africans supposed to be in a rural area and living like I was living with my grandmother, but they have removed them from their land. They have disrupted them. And now they have the city centers with no amenities, and they just live like blurry case animal, right? That's a white thing. That's not an African thing. African used to not live in a slum. That was not a thing. That's white colonizers. That's capitalism. Because they need the rural area for the monoculture so they can produce, I don't know what. Things that not worth, there's not people can eat. Like stupid stuff, maybe flowers or what have you, right? So that's a capitalist thing. That is a white supremacy thing. We can't be fucking around fighting over meaningless arguments. And it really upsets me when I see people who should know better. But it tells you the middle class is a class, is narcissistic. They're fucking narcissistic. I can't stand it. I actually don't care about the middle class. I don't care. Yeah, they can, you know, they could be doctors or what have you, and they have a level of education. But I don't know if that level of education is making them disgustingly arrogant or narcissistic or something. Because what it is that you are somewhere above so many human beings below you that you start to think that you got like, they act like white supremacists almost, right? That's why I hate middle class people with passion. Because just because you're smarter or you have a level of knowledge or most of being and shit than other people, does not make you a special human being. It just doesn't. And it pissed me off because they wasting too much of our time. And I don't think they're making life better for us sometimes. Like Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, now they will amount to be the president. That have they improved the life of black people on US or anywhere? I don't think so. I think they have made it worse. Actually, I think they have made it worse. Only thing they have managed is make white folk upset. Now, if that's all we black people we can feel good about, then so be it. I don't think that's enough, right? I don't think that's enough. But what I'm trying to say, we have to be more profound. Colonizers are doing stuff that actually materially attainable. Yesterday, and this is my last point, and then we'll go to read Dr. Parenti. There was another thing that really I don't read the mainstream, as you know, but I do read people who read the mainstream, right? And I can't believe some of the things that I be reading. So, and if you give me a second here, I'll find it. It was just so. It was published, a piece that was published in the Washington Post, right? And I will tell you the argument in a second if I can find it. Let's see, what was it? Okay, so it was, and I've spoken about this guy. His name is Arnold Bertrand. He's a French, but I think he lived in Asia, and he tweeted about this yesterday on Twitter, and he tweeted that he read this piece in the Washington Post that was published on February 23rd, 2026, and the headline of that is this: China tried to buy the world, it failed. The financial investment, it is no substitute for the power that forces provide, right? So this white colonizer who wrote that piece saying that the only thing that matters is the military force that U.S. has that can go to a country, point gun at people, steal their shit, right? And the way China does, where he actually do business the correct way, shouldn't be that is a waste of time. Because look, China had an agreement with Venezuela. U.S. going there, stole Venezuela. Now Chinese investment went to waste, right? That's the argument. All right. And you make up your mind what you think that is. But these are white colonizers. The black people who are fighting, the middle class black folk, not busy about. They're busy about petty insults. So I don't even know what that is. But let's see what Mr. Bertrand responded to this. I'm gonna go with him. And I'm quoting from this point. This Washington Post article is unreal. They unironically mock China for not being imperialist and fail to use force to defend his interests, arguing that they are losing out to the U.S. in Venezuela, Panama, etc., which does precisely that. In essence, the article can be summarized as, quote, you Chinese losers that you can again influence by actually building things. The only thing that actually works is bombing people, close quote. I'm not even exaggerating. The author literally writes that, quote, China can spend all the money of infrastructure it wants, but in the crunch, it only military force that count, close quote. He argues that China approach was, quote, a colossal waste of money, close quote, because, quote, control of infrastructure can be changed, close quote, with a U.S.-led, quote, change of regime, close quote, and, quote, ownership of any asset can be overthrown, close quote. His article conclusion, quote, you can't buy an empire, nor can you purchase global influence. It is only hard power that counts for anything, close quote. As cynical and brutal as the article is, it is also refreshing honest. It is factual that China's strategy was to win over the global south by investing in the infrastructure development while the U.S. maintained his influence through regime change, various forms of coercion, and threat or use of force. The conclusion that it is China should feel embarrassed by this as opposed to U.S., however, completely insane. Every sane person on earth should hope that it is China approach that ultimately prevails for the sake of our collective future as humanity. China is ultimately trying to prove that one can prevail geopolitically without violence by building instead of destroying. Don't be like this idiot Washington Post writer and root for the answer to be quote unquote no, close quote. All right. Alright, so those are the kind of arguments, the kind of things I think about. I don't care if black people here think that what they think about other black oppressed folks. I don't care if black folks they hate me because I'm a light skin and I'm a mulatto or anything like that. I feel like I don't care about celebrities or anything like that. These are the kind of arguments I'm paying attention to. Right? Because again, white colonizer, if they can't get it, if they ask you to give it up and you don't want to give it up, right? They will take it by force. And how can we change that equation is what I'm interested in. Right? These are the things, who is pretty, who is not pretty, who has more money, who has no. It's not interested to me. I care about what, like I cried yesterday on my video. The poorest Hondurans are now gonna go without the healthcare that was provided to them by Cuban doctors. Because white colonizers now want to get rid of them. Right? This level of inhumanity and abuse of simple human like me and you is what drives me. I just cannot believe like this level of cruelty. Right? I can't believe it. Because unlike most people, I actually know for a fact that any human being on earth is just like me. They breathe, their biological thing supposed to be the same as me. Right? We universal. Humans are universal. And as long as that's the case, they're just like me and they're be treated less than what they should be treated, it's gonna be a problem for me. Right? That is how I feel. It could have been me who live in a slum in Kenya, or it could have been me who live in the favelas of Brazil, or it could have been me who were enslaved in the 19th century, or it could have been me who live at the palace, right? Or it could have been me, any range of things, right? And I want human beings, a human life to mean something, not just the favorite peoples, not just the highly intellectual or highly rich, or no, all humans to be treated the same. And with that, we're going to start our new book. So we're starting today with Dr. Parenti. Alright, so this one is the book we're going to read today. And I want this book, the reason I want us to read this book is because of that speech by Marco Rubio. That speech inspired me to read this book, right? Because it explains why these colonizers are fascinated by ancient Rome. Because I think that's what they're trying to perpetuate, this U.S. empire through this mythical empire that the writers like to act like some sort of a good thing when in fact it's a terrible thing. And Dr. Parenti is gonna give us some tools to look at Roman Empire as it was, not as what the colonizers want us to know. So we'll start off. The name of this book is The Assassination of Julius Caesar, A People History of Ancient Rome by Michael Parenti. Alright. Now I don't know if acknowledgement, if you want me, we should start by the acknowledgement. Alright, let's see. Okay, I'm gonna skip the acknowledgement. You can read it yourself, but I'm gonna skip the acknowledgement. You can read it. I already read it, but you can read it yourself if you want to. because I don't think it's important. It's just he's thanking people who help him with this book. But we're going to start with the introduction, which is the first page, okay? The introduction. The what's that? Taran Masadai O treason. Oh, what if all was there, my countrymen? Then I and you and all of us fell down, while blood treason flourished over us. This is Julius Caesar Act 3 and the scenes 2. On the 15th of March, 44 BC, in a meeting hall adjacent to Pompey's theater, the Roman Senate awaits the arrival of the Republic's supreme commander, Julius Caesar. This particular session did not promise to be an eventful one for most of the senators, but others among them were fully alive to what was in offense. They thought about trying to maintain a calm and casual pose with daggers concealed beneath their togas. Finally, Caesar entered the chamber. He had an imposing presence, argument by an air of command that can with being at the height of his power. Moving quickly to the front to the hall, he set himself in a place of honor. First to approach him was a senator who pretended to enter a personal plea on behalf of a relative. Close behind came a group of others who crowded around the ceremonial chair. At a given signal, they began to slash at their prey with their knives, delivering fatal wounds. By this act, the assailants believed they had saved the Roman Republic. In fact, they had set the stage for his complete undoing. The question that informed this book is, why did a courtier of Roman senator assassinated the fellow aristocrat and celebrate ruler Julius Caesar? An inquiry into this incident revealed something important about the nature of political rule, class power, and people's struggle for democracy and social justice, issues that are still very much with us. The assassination also marked a turning point in the history of Rome. It set in motion a civil war and put an end to whatever democracy there had been, ushering in an absolutist rule that would prevail over Western Europe for centuries to come. The prevailing opinion among historians, ancients, and modern alike is that the senatorial assassins were intent upon restoring Republican liberties by doing away with a despotic usurper. This is the justification proffered by assassins themselves. In this book, I present an alternative explanation. The Senate aristocrat killed Caesar because they perceived him to be a popular leader who threatened their privileged interests. By this view, the deed was more an act of treason than tyrannicide. One incident in a line of political murder dating back across the better part of the century, a dramatic manifestation of a long-standing struggle between opulent conservative and popularity supporters reformers. The struggle and their early assassination will be treated in the pages ahead. This book is not only about the history of the late Republic, but also how the history has been distorted by those writers who regularly downplay the importance of material interests those whose ideological taboos about class reality dim their perception of the past. This distortion is also manifest in the way many historians, both ancient and modern, have portrayed the common people of Rome as being little better than non-some rabble and riotous mob. In words and action, wealthy Romans made no secret of their fear and hatred of the common people and anyone else who infringed upon their class prerogatives. History is full of examples of political economic elites who equate any challenge to their privileged social order as a challenge to all social order, an invitation to chaos and perdition. The oligarchs of Rome were no exception. Except in utter opulence and luxury, they remained forever inhospitable to Rome's democratic element. They valued the republic only as long as it served their way of life. They diminished as, quote, demagogues and, quote, usurpers the dedicated leaders who tore up the popular cause. The historians of that day, often wealthy slaveholders themselves, usually agree with the assessment. So too classical historians of the modern era, many of whom adopt a viewpoint not too different from the one held by the Roman aristocracy. Caesar's sin, I should argue, was not that he was subverting the Roman constitution, which was an unwritten one, but that he was loosening the oligarchy overbearing grip on it. Worse still, he used state power to effect some limited benefits for small farmers, debtors, and urban proletariat at the expense of the wealthy few. No matter how limited these reforms proved to be, the oligarchs never forgave him, and to Caesar met the same fate as other Roman reformers before him. My primary interest is not in Julius Caesar as an individual, but as an issue of popular struggle and oligarchy power that were being played out decades before he was born. Continuing into his final life and leading to his death. While into his adulthood, most of what I knew about ancient Rome was learned from Hollywood and television. In my head were images of men in togas striding about marble palaces, mouthing lapidary phrases and a stage manners accent, and of course image of chariot races and Francis arena crowd giving thumbs down to hapless victims. In my woeful ignorance, I was no different from many other educated Americans who have passed from grade school to the postdoctoral level without ever learning anything sensible about the Roman history. Aside from the tableaus furnished by Hollywood and television, all that I knew of Julius Caesar are owed to two playwrights, William Shakespeare and George Bernard Shaw. If one has to be misinformed about a subject, it might as well be from the wonderful pens of Shakespeare and Shaw. Fictional representation of history do not usually strive for accuracy, the primary goal being to entertain rather than educate. Still, they often are more literal than literally in the way they play upon our minds. And we have best monitor a tendency to treat the fictional as factual. Shakespeare Julius Caesar is a playful play that draws heavily from the bureaucrat in the imaginary yet surprisingly faithful way. Literary critics do not agree on whether Shakespeare wants us to consider the assassination as execrable or laudable. We are left to wonder whether Caesar is to be admired or denounced, whether Brutus is noble or loathsome, and whether he or Caesar or Antony or anyone is to the hero of the play. For its ambiguities, Shakespeare's treatment is a politically self-rendition. He focuses on the immediate question of tyranny versus republican freedom. Those are exactly the parameters within which the sensational assassin confined the debate. Likewise, Shakespeare shares the Roman elite view of the common crowd as a mindless aggregation easily led hindered and thither, first adulating Pompey, then bowing to Caesar, later hailing Brutus for saving them from tyranny, only in the next breath to be swayed by Antony. In Julius Caesar, the common people seemingly are capable only of mindless violence and degraded disportment. All this is keeping with the dominant stereotype of the Roman proletariat that has come down to us. George Bernard Shaw, Caesar's in Cleopatra, is charmingly written and highly engaging. Shaw Caesar is a benign aging fellow who reluctantly settles for an avuncular relationship with Cleopatra. Upon their first encounter, when she has yet to discover his identity, she repeatedly calls him, quote, "old gentleman," close quote. It is clear from the outset that there can be no romantic interest between them because of Caesar's age and he and the young queen immaturity. At the end of the play, as Caesar departs from Rome, he voices his doubts that he will ever see Cleopatra again. But he promised to send her the young, handsome Mark Antony, much to her delight. In real life, when she was still in her teens, well before she met Caesar, Cleopatra already had slept with Antony. It happened in 55 BC when a Roman expeditionary force was in Egypt to restore the Ptolemy to the throne. Antony was serving as commander of the cavalry. Sometime later, still predating Caesar's arrival, Cleopatra bestowed her favors upon a second Roman lover, Pompey's son, Naus, who was in Africa raising troops for his father. And so, notwithstanding, in the late 48 BC, thought Caesar was 53 and she but 23 or so. She proved ready enough to be her third woman. It is said that Cleopatra was a woman of lively turn and enticing talents. She also had a keen sense of political. That this Roman conqueror had the power to secure the Egyptian throne for her must have added to the attraction she felt for him. It developed into a protected love affair. Eventually, she bore Caesar a son and moved to Rome in order to be closer to him, thereby demonstrating that some things never change. Although he was engaged in other sexual liaison and possessed of a wife, Caesar found time to give Cleopatra a lavish welcome befitting a queen, erecting a gold effigy of her in a consecrated area. He established her in a sumptuous villa across the Tiber, from which she held court while political leaders, financiers, and men of letters, including renowned Cicero, danced in attendance. To his credit, Saul does insert an iconoclastic sentiment not found in Shakespeare or among regiment of historians who are written about the late Republic. In a prologue to Caesars and Cleopatra that is almost never performed, the god right tells the audience how Rome discovered that, quote, the road to richness and greatness is through robbery of the poor and the slaughter of the weak, close quote. In conformity with the dictums, the Romans, quote, robbed their own poor until they became great masters of that art and knew by what laws it would be made to appear seemingly and honest, close quote. And after squeezing their own people dry, they stripped the poor throughout the many other lands they conquered. Quote, and I roared loud for the minds of the Roman reminded the same side while their dominion spread over the earth, close quote. Very likely Saul was inviting his audience to draw a parallel to the small colonist minds that held sway over the vast British Empire of his own day. There is another instance of Saul iconoclastic. In Act 2 of the Caesar and Cleopatra, Lucius Septimius refuses Caesar's invitation to join his rank and prepares to depart. Caesar's loyal comrade in arms Rufus angrily observed, quote, that means he is a Republican, close quote. Lucius turns defiantly and asks, quote, and why are you, close quote, to which Rufus responded, quote, a Caesarian like all Caesarian soldier, close quote. Left at that, we have the standard view espoused by Shakespeare and most historians. The struggle is between those fighting to preserve the Republic and those who make themselves an instrument of Caesar's power. But Saul goes on a step further, hinting that the republicanism versus the Caesarian is not really the issue. So he has Caesar interjecting, quote, Lucius, believe me, Caesar is no Caesarian. Were Roman a true republic, then were Caesar the first of republicans, close quote. That response invites the dissent query pursued in this book. How Republican was the late Republic? More than 2,000 years after Caesar, most students of the period have yet to bid farewell to the misapprehension about the Republican embraced by Lucius and most others of his social set. They have yet to consider that Republicans might largely be a club for oligarchy privilege, as it often is to this day, whom gradually by the elites, as long as they prove servable to their interests. At the same time, as we should see, ordinary Roman citizens have been able to win limited but important rights under the Republic, and they at times make important democratic gains, including occasional success around land redistribution, rent control, debt cancellation, and other reforms. As far as the Senate oligarchs were concerned, such agitation and popular invitation were the major problem, perceived by them as first step down the path to class revolution. To this day, dubious family representation about the ancient Rome continued to mass market. In 2000, while I was working on this book, Hollywood brought forth The Gladiator, a swashbuckling epic about the revenge and heroism, offering endless episodes of arena bloodletting. Unencumbered by the trace of artistic merit, Gladiator played before packed houses in the United States and abroad, winning a Golden Globe Award and an Academy Award. The story takes place during the reign of the Venal Emperor Commodus. more than 2 centuries after Caesar's death. Worth noting is how the Roman Senate is depicted. We are asked to believe that the Senate was populated by public spirit men devoted to the people's welfare. But the people themselves are portrayed as little more than rabble. In one sense, on one scene, 2 Senate leaders are seated in the Colosseum. When one of them complains of the unsavory proceeding below, the other opines that the crowd is interested only in the bread and circuses, war, and violence. Quote, Rome is the mob. The beating hearts of the Rome is not the marble of the Senate. It is the sense of the Colosseum. The emperor will bring the death and they will love him for it. Close quote. This view of the Roman populace as mindless, bloodthirsty riffraffs unfortunately remain to anti-people history purveyed by both entertainment, media, and many classic scholars. I cannot recall exactly when I moved beyond the stage and screen image of Roman and Caesar and became seriously interested in the late Republic as a subject of intense study. It was years ago, by way of my self-directed reading in ancient Greek history and political philosophy. At first, it appeared to me that the Romans could have been as compelling and absorbing as the Mediterranean cousin, but indeed they are, at least from 133 BC to 40 BC. The years covered in this book, most of which fall in that period designated the late Republic. To assist the many readers who might be unfamiliar with the ancient Rome, the first 3 chapters deal with the Rome history and the socio-political life. Chapter 4 treats the plural bloody repression of populist reformers and their followers from the Tiberius Gracchus 133 BC down to Caesar early days. Chapter 5 offers a critical portrayal of the historian hero, Cicero, with a narrative of how he mobilized the forces of political repression on behalf of elite interests. The next 5 chapters deal with Caesar's life and reveal political issues, his death, and his aftermath. The final chapter caps the whole subject of ancient Rome, taking to task the stereotype of the Roman people as rabble, as quote-unquote rabble and quote-unquote mob. When the editor of the New York Press told me they wanted to include this book in the People's History series, I agree. By my view, any history that deals with the efforts of the populace to defend itself from the abuses of wealth and tyranny is people's history. Such history as has been written over the past century by such nobles as W.B. Du Bois, Philip Faulkner, Herbert Aptheker, Albert Mays, A.L. Morton, George Rudy, Richard Yobert, Herbert Morris, Jesse Lemons, Howard Zinn, G.E.M. There's Cross and others. But writing history from the bottom up is not easy task when it comes to the Roman Republic, for there exists no trove for ordinary people's letters, diaries, and memories, no back issue or label publication and newspaper, no court police, no government document of any kind that compose the historical record of the more recent century. Most of Roman written history libraries and archives were lost over time or were deliberately destroyed by the fanatical proselytes of Christians who conducted a systematic work of eradication against pagan scholarship and culture after they came to power in the 5th century AD. In any case, as far as we know, the small farmers, proletarians, and slaves of Rome left no written record to speak of. So one must read against the grain, looking for evidence of the Roman people's struggle and the self-serving words and repressive deeds of the wealthy oligarchs. A people's history should be not only on account of popular struggle against oppression, but an expose of the anti-people's history that has prevailed among generations of mainstream historians. It should be a critical history about the people's oppressors, or those who propagate an elitist ideology and loading of the common people that dictates the historical record down to this day. Here is a story of a latifundia and despot, masters enslaved, patriarchs and subordinate women, servant rich and capitalists and plunderers, profiteering, slumlords, and urban rioters. Here is a struggle between the plutocratic few and the indignant many, the privileged versus the proletariat, featuring corrupt politicians, money-driven election, and the political assassination of populist leaders. I leave it to the reader to decide whether any of this might resonate with the attempt of our own stamps. Okay, so that's the introduction to the Assassination of Julius Caesar, a paper history of the ancient Rome by Dr. Michael Parenti. Tomorrow we'll pick up from there. We'll pick up chapter 1, Gentleman, History, Empire, Class, and Patriarchy. Okay? Alright, so now let's go ahead and end this with some jam. Let's see what we can hear. Oh, y'all want to hear? Why y'all want to rock out of here? And then, I don't know. Let's see. Let's see. I'm going to start looking for the song that we can leave here. You know what? Let's listen to Philip Oakes. Love Me, I'm a Liberal. I know it's a boring song, but it's okay. But liberals are a piece of shit. So this is a good one.
There's only one no sense.
In every American community, you have varying shades of political opinion.
Sí,
One of the shadiest of these is the liberals. An outspoken group on many subjects. 10 degrees to the left of center in good times. 10 degrees to the right of center if it affects them personally. So here then is a lesson in safe logic. I cried when they shot Medgar Evers. Tears ran down my spine. And I cried when they shot Mr. Kennedy, as though I'd lost a father of mine. But Malcolm X got what was coming. He got what he asked for this time. So love me, love me, love me, I'm a liberal. Get it? I go to civil rights rallies and I put down the old DAR. DAR, that's the dykes of the American Revolution. I love Harry and Sidney and Sammy. I hope every colored boy becomes a star. But don't talk about revolution. That's going a little bit too far. So love me, love me, love me, I'm a liberal. I cheered when Humphrey was chosen, my faith in the system restored. And I'm glad that the commies were thrown out from the AFL-CIO board. And I love Puerto Ricans and Negroes as long as they don't move next door. So love me, love me, love me, I'm a liberal. Ah, the people of old Mississippi should all hang their heads in shame. Now I can't understand how their minds work. What's the matter, don't they watch Les Crane? But if you ask me to bus my children, I hope the cops take down your name. So love me, love me, love me, I'm a liberal. Yes, I read New Republic and Nation. I've learned to take every view. You know, I've memorized Lerner and Golden. I feel like I'm almost a Jew. But when it comes to times like Korea, there's no one more red, white, and blue. So love me, love me, love me, I'm a liberal. I vote for the Democratic Party. They want the UN to be strong. I attend all the Pete Seeger concerts. He sure gets me singing those songs. And I'll send all the money you ask for, but don't ask me to come on along. So love me, love me, love me, I'm a liberal. Sure, once I was young and impulsive, I wore every conceivable pin. Even went to socialist meetings, learned all the old Union hymns. Ah, but I've grown older